Welcome to DAO Deep Dives, where we interview DAO founders, core DAO contributors, and everyone else who works on the periphery of decentralized autonomous organizations.
Welcome, Rachel. Another episode of DAO Deep Dives. Super excited to have you here. We have met at ETH Denver this year, actually, for the first time IRL. So very exciting to talk to you today. How is it going?
Absolutely. I just want to express my gratitude for both of you having me here today on DAO Deep Dives. And it's just going good, man. Just staying busy and preparing some exciting things, which we'll get into on this recording today.
That's fun. I guess we'll start by just asking who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background maybe, and how you got here.
Sure. So my name is Rachel. I commonly go by Rachel Rose B on Twitter, Telegram. So I currently am a coalition success steward at Opolis. So my day-to-day basically looks like nurturing different Web3 partnerships and building symbiotic relationships in the Web3 space specifically. I have a huge passion for DAOs and helping organizations to transition to a more empowerment focused structure for individuals. So that's been my obsession since I discovered Web3. Really, DAOs were the thing that got me most involved. And it actually allowed me to leave my 9 to 5 job and fully immerse myself in the space. So, yeah, I got my start, my first ETH Denver last year. I actually publicly spoke about DAOs at DAO Denver, if you guys are familiar, which was really a huge starting point for me. So I was at this crossroads. Like my employer didn't want me going to ETH Denver, but I really wanted to go. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to jump into the abyss. And I took a huge risk going there with no job security. And I'm so happy because it actually ended up paying off. I was able to go and immerse myself in the space full time. And here I am now working at Opolis. So yeah, just super blessed. I get to work with really smart, kind-hearted people every day. And just, yeah, really blessed.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely need passion for DAOs on this podcast, no question. So with that, one of my favorite questions we try to ask every guest we have on the show is a variation of what do you think a DAO is? And in your own words, in like your crazy interpretation, your literal interpretation, however you want to take it, go for it.
Okay, let me think about this. So, a DAO, I feel like it's a new way for us to work together in a way that celebrates autonomy and individuality. And it removes, first of all, with cryptocurrency, right? It removes the middleman and makes things more peer to peer. I think DAOs are the organizational manifestation of that ethos, right? With crypto, we're trying to make things that eliminate the big banks and the middleman. I think DAOs are the manifestation of that as far as organizational structures go. So I think that DAOs are really creating a culture where people can work with like-minded individuals, have a say in the direction of the organization, vote with their assets or vote on where the assets go. And I think this is really unique and it differentiates from hierarchical organizational structures where you have people at the top who are calling all the shots and everyone at the bottom is working harder and making those people at the top more rich. So what I really love about DAOs is that it gives people more of a voice and it's more inclusive, right? So yeah, I would say a DAO is the manifestation of the Web3 ethos, the ethos of cryptocurrency and having things be more peer to peer.
Yes. All right. Now that we got some like icebreakers out of the way, go a little off the path and just start with one word from your Twitter bio, which we'd love for you to talk about, which is solar punk. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Oh my God. I can go on and on. At ETH Denver, I actually spoke at Shelling Point and I connected with so many amazing people, including Kevin Iwaki. I had the Green Pill book attached to my hip throughout ETH Denver, like seriously just skimming through looking for inspiration. And I really align with the ethos of crypto regenerating the world. So I watched a video by Kevin Iwaki who was breaking down solar punk versus lunar punk and getting into all the nuances there. And I really fell in love with the art style. If you notice my banner on my Twitter, it shows like solar punk art. And I really like that I don't know, I'm a believer in the law of attraction. And I think that we can manifest the future that we want by envisioning it and taking steps to get there. And I think the regen community, the solar punk community, they just envision that. And I really appreciate the art style because it's like we can create a future that regenerates the earth, that creates more regenerative systems for people. So I really believe in that.
Yeah, so Opolis, obviously a big part of your work today. So give us a summary of what Opolis is and why is Opolis important? Why should people care?
Absolutely. So yeah, I spend a lot of my days talking about Opolis. So This project has really blown my mind, you guys. It's a member owned digital employment cooperative, and it's legitimizing employment in the Web3 space. So, our founders have been thinking on this idea for a long time. Our founder, John Poller, who's also the founder of ETH Denver, worked for over 20 years in HR tech and had a PEO that employed over 40,000 W 2 employees. So, through that experience, he realized that employment is something that affects everybody, earning affects everybody. And now in the Web3 space, we're in this vertical that's been traditionally non compliant when it comes to taxes, when it comes to having access to things like benefits, even. So, what they created is Opolis. And Opolis, like I said, it's a member owned digital employment cooperative. And it gives people things like W 2s, pay stubs, access to medical, dental, vision, 401ks, retirement plans. And I feel like that's so needed in the Web3 space. And we also help people with being tax compliant too, which is huge if you're earning in crypto. Now, a common misconception, because we're so ingrained in the Web3 space, that this is only meant for people who are earning in crypto or Web3. But this is for anybody who's an independent worker, independent solo entrepreneur that's earning. So basically, the qualifying factors were launched in the United States and Canada. And the individual that's joining needs to be making at least the minimum wage due to labor laws in their jurisdiction. So those are the things we look at. You don't have to be earning in crypto, but we do offer crypto friendly payroll options. So I think these are solving some major problems. And just to give like a real world use case of this, like for me, I was looking for an apartment in San Francisco and tried getting an apartment with your MetaMask wallet. So joining Opolis really helped me to show legal proof of income. Like I was earning in crypto, but I was able to off ramp the assets and package it into a W 2, get semi monthly pay stubs, and show legally that I'm earning and I'm compliant with my taxes, which, by the way, made doing my taxes a lot easier too.
Yeah, fantastic. So that was a fantastic summary of Opolis, even for myself. I've followed the project for a little while. But in Opolis, what do you specifically do? You mentioned your role, but what does your day to day look like?
So, my day to day, I do a lot of community building and partnerships. I would say if I had to sum up my role, it would be creating Web3 community partnerships with Opolis. So, we've started to work with a lot of different projects. Like I mentioned at Consensus, we did an event with Web3, with 40 Acres DAO. Recently, we announced a partnership with Disco XYZ, if any of you are familiar with that project. The list goes on and on. Bankless DAO, Wonderverse. Yeah, I have an entire list of community partners, and pretty much my day to day is just talking to people in Discord, on Telegram, hopping on partnership calls. We're working on something with Polygon that's coming up soon. Yeah, a lot of exciting things in the pipeline. And basically, my day is very human centric. I spend a lot of my day talking to people and problem solving, like how to add value and how to create value and create basically symbiotic relationships. That's like what my day looks like.
Nice. So maybe this ties right in then. Can you tell us a bit about regenerative employment, what that is?
Yeah. So regenerative employment, when you break that down and look at regenerative systems, there's something that increase in value over time. It's not extracting value over time. So basically, regenerative employment, what we're doing in Opolis is giving ownership to the individual over their employment. So what this looks like basically is like the individual, if you're earning at Opolis or processing your payroll through Opolis, you get something called work reward tokens. So this makes you essentially a partial owner in the employment cooperative. So Opolis is structured as a Colorado LCA. So we distribute work tokens to our Employment Commons members and to our partners. And this gives them essentially more skin in the game. As we transition into a DAO, those will become increasingly more valuable and will help individuals to vote on the direction of the DAO. So we're on track to make that transition when we hit 1,000 members. So basically, I see this as the regenerative employment piece as adding value to individuals versus extracting value for individuals, which is more sustainable over time.
So you touched on the transition to becoming a DAO for Opolis, which we love to hear, naturally. Give us a little bit more insight on how that's going. You said it once you hit 1,000 members, but so far, maybe where you at, what kind of DAO principles, decentralized governance do you already have in place? What are the plans there, and how is that going to provide greater autonomy, self-sovereignty for the workers? Because I'm assuming that's part of the idea of why you transition into a DAO in the first place.
Absolutely. So, yeah, the decentralization piece is really big to us. So, when we hit 1,000 members, which we're on track to do this year, basically the employment commons will acquire Opolis. So that means the employment commons members will have say in the direction of things like, say, which benefits packages we're going to offer and things of that nature. So that's really important to us. Being really ingrained in East Denver, I think the Web3 ethos and decentralization is so big for Opolis. And a lot of our members actually value that a lot. Our community partners are really comprised of a lot of DAOs and Web3 projects, although we also work with Web2 projects as well. So I would say it makes sense for Opolis based on who the majority of our members are comprised of, which are a lot of people working in the DAO space and working in Web3. So yeah, when we hit 1,000 members, Employment Commons will acquire Opolis and have say in the direction. And those work tokens will become increasingly valuable. They're a unit of patronage distributed to our Employment Commons members and to our partners, like I mentioned. And if you want to nerd out and learn more about the distribution and how the tokenomics are structured, you can go to opolis.co and that will be under resources.
Fantastic. The concept of starting the way Opolis did and then have the roadmap very clearly defined that if this happens, the DAO will acquire Opolis as it stood before is very interesting. But I think there's a lot of DAOs, not enough, I would almost argue, which I've seen have a corporate side, right? So there may be a company which already existed, and then they start this parallel DAO for the community and how they are working together, and what the future is for those two is often not very clear. So I love that you guys have that baked in from day one.
Absolutely. And I agree. I don't know if it's really sustainable for a more decentralized structure for one or two people to be calling all the shots or pulling all of the weight. Because I've seen that a lot in DAOs. It ends up being like a couple of people really pulling the weight and doing the majority of the work and decision making. And I think it's just more sustainable when you have an energy of inclusion, decentralization.
Yeah. So, from your time in Opolis, have you seen any extraordinary stories, examples of individuals, maybe specifically for DAO members or contributors? Like, how has that made their life better? What does Opolis services do for them?
Yeah, so I can use one example. Shout out to our ambassador, Jarris James. He was a contributor from Bankless DAO who now went over to Lido. And yeah, he's been really ingrained in the Opolis community as an ambassador. So we do have a growing community of ambassadors, which I can get into as well. But basically, just seeing his transformation, right? Knowing there were certain criteria that he had to hit to become a member, and he worked diligently to hit those criteria and then eventually became a member. And from his testimonials, he said like it's made doing taxes a lot easier. He now has access to benefits. And I've heard this from countless others. Like I've heard people like one of our friends in the community, NF Thinker, say, I really got into Web3 knowing that Opolis existed. That was my deciding factor. I wouldn't have left my 9 to 5. I wouldn't have left the security of that if it was not for Opolis providing these benefits that are like the equivalent of corporate benefits with the freedom of doing what you love in Web3. So it really acts as a safety net for individuals, right? It's if you're hesitant about earning in crypto or jumping into Web3 or even starting your own business, we help along the way with all of that. We have access to medical, dental, vision, retirement plans. So all of that just makes it a lot less scary.
Yeah. So, on a personal level, what excites you most about the future of work and the potential impact of decentralized technologies as a whole? I think the intersection of those two things, I'd say they need each other going forward. And how do you think about that?
You know what? I touched on this a bit at the beginning, but this phrase just keeps coming to my mind, and it's peer to peer. I like getting rid of the middleman and getting rid of this hierarchical structure of a CEO at the top telling you to sit in your desk from 9 to 5. I like that there's freedom of choice. I like that it's more sustainable and what's the word? Empowering for the individual to show up and work with like-minded individuals on something that you're passionate about because it's what you want to do. And I really think Opolis plays into the future of work by providing things like the benefits and W-2 and pay stubs and providing that safety net for individuals who want to take the plunge and do the work they love. So I see that playing a huge part in the future of work. And I see DAOs playing a significant part in the future of work. And there's still a lot of things we got to figure out with DAOs. I think we're still very early, but I think it has a lot of potential to empower individuals and help us shift out of a cultural paradigm that keeps people feeling trapped in jobs that aren't fulfilling for them.
What's the process like if I'm a contributor or just a worker that is utilizing Opolis and needing benefits? I got to support a child. And what's the actual process like of being able to take advantage of those benefits? And is there like on a typical job, you might have 90 days before your benefits kick in. Can you tell us a little bit more about how this works on a practical level?
Yeah, so our membership success stewards meet with individuals and basically they go through what their individual needs are. But what I will say is that benefits become active on the first of the month. So you need to basically start doing the work on becoming a member before the end of the month to be active by the next month. So that's like with a lot of insurance companies. Now, that's for the benefit side. And by the way, benefits are optional for our members. Like the primary service we're offering is payroll, W 2s, pay stubs, and all the benefits are there if you want them, but they're not essential. It's optional for our members if they want to utilize that. So, yeah, aside from the benefits, the payroll, right? So, semi monthly, we have the individual process payroll, and they can set this up to be paid in cryptocurrency or direct deposited in fiat currency to their bank account. And this is semi monthly. So it's going to be 2 Fridays out of the month, sometimes 3 Fridays out of the month, depending on the month.
So benefits being optional is something familiar to most people who freelance, I would imagine. You either have the insurance or you do not. The question I was leading into is how do Opolis benefits compare to what you would be getting in the open market?
Oh, we actually have the numbers on that. So members typically save anywhere between 20 and 50% on the state exchanges. So Theopolis benefits typically save members 20 to 50%. Now, for me, I used to be on the California State Exchange, and I know that my co-pays were huge. I ended up having to pay a lot out of pocket for medical and dental expenses. I can say with confidence that my coverage is so much better on Opolis, but that's for me personally, and that varies from person to person. So, what I suggest is schedule a call with one of our membership success stewards, and they'll walk you through and analyze your individual situation because it might not make sense for everybody. You might be under 26 years old, you might still be under one of your parents' plans, and you might have better coverage there. So, we really need to take a look at what your current coverage looks like or lack of coverage looks like, what you're paying, and see if you would save and if it would make more sense. A lot of the times it does, sometimes it doesn't. So, I'd say it's on a case by case basis.
How do they do exactly that? Do they go to the website Opolis and then look for that information? Because you mentioned something very specific, an actionable item there.
Yeah, actually, what I'll do, we can share a link in the description for this. I can actually share a Calendly link to schedule time to meet with the Opolis team. If anybody's looking to learn more, become a member, we can share the website and a Calendly link to schedule some time if that's okay.
Absolutely. And then I'm assuming this is also on a case to case, but I am curious in this world of independent workers, a lot of us are tech nomads or nomads of some sort, right? So can you guys help also the individuals advise on where should you choose your domicile if you can?
Yeah, so that is such a good question. And that really leads into the self sovereignty piece. So, if you're familiar with Opolis, I'm sure you've heard self sovereignty or democratizing employment at some point. So, going back to the self sovereignty piece and what you mentioned, these benefits and what we're offering is portable to the individual to empower digital nomads and independent workers. What that means really is you can work on multiple projects. And have you guys heard of golden handcuffs? Like how people end up staying in jobs or they hate or they're disengaged from just for the benefits. So we believe in breaking the golden handcuffs and allowing you to go to whatever projects you'd like to work with whom, from where, and how much you like. And your benefits don't change. They travel with you, and we help you set up your own LLC. So that's another piece I didn't mention. So one of the first steps with getting set up with Opolis is you need to get set up with your own LLC. I've done that personally and have used my business to be an Employment Commons member. But basically, you're processing payroll and using your business to get your own benefits. So those are tied to you and your entity. You're not tied to any other organization for those benefits. I think that's really nice that it empowers people to do work they love and be digital nomads and work on as many DAOs as they'd like. And what you do basically, if your income is fluctuating, you just update the amount you're earning on your membership dashboard. We don't need to know where you're earning the money from. You just need to tell us how much you're processing in payroll. And we calculate on a federal and state level how much you owe in taxes and package up your pay stubs and W 2 free.
Yeah, these tools are super necessary for people, even for the future of work to actually exist. So where were you, or how long ago were you like, duh, the future of work is definitely happening and this is how we get there?
To be honest, I was sitting in an office space in Palo Alto and I was doing a deep dive on Opolis because I started exploring them as a DAO tool solution. And I was writing a Medium article about Opolis. And the more I started learning, this light bulb just went off. I'm like, oh my God, this is like really something we need. And the more and more I started working with the team, I'm like, okay, I see huge potential here. And it was like a moment for me, like I have with DAOs, just, okay, this is something I really want to be involved with. This is something that's, I feel like it's bear market proof, right? It's like, this is going to help people regardless in the Web 2 or Web 3 space. It's for people who want to be their own boss and work independently, doing the work they love and have all the benefits and things they need to thrive in the modern world. And our founder calls them like the necessary evils of the world, right? Taxes and things like that. But it's very much a part of our reality. So I think Opolis just helps navigate that a lot easier for people.
So we're talking about these types of individuals, right? Like freelancers, digital nomads. But do you see a trend in types of industries Opolis is more common in? And what do you think the next big industry will be where Opolis will really make an impact?
That's a good question. So, from what I've seen, it's a lot of Taoists, it's a lot of digital nomads, people working in Web3, working on DAOs. Over the past few months, I have to say we've seen an uptick in mental health workers, therapists, and things like that. So, we've definitely seen more members coming from that vertical. I also perhaps the insurance industry too, because one of my colleagues is getting a lot more involved in the world of insurance and brokers and things like that. So yeah, it would be speculation at this point, but that's something we could see more of in the future. But
That's awesome. Okay, here's a question that we throw at all of our guests, and it's a fun question. We're just really thinking about like 10x from here or 100x from here. We're thinking about DAOs and how they are now. Where do we go from here? What's the 10x idea? Like how in 10 years from now, what does our society look like because of DAOs? What effect do they have?
the first thing that comes to mind, I dream of a world where I can go to a conference like and travel and not have to explain to every Uber and Lyft driver what a DAO is. Because so far that's happened like every time I'm using rideshare and they're like, oh, what are you here for? And I'm like, Web3 conference. I love DAOs. What's a DAO? So I dream of a future where that's just like a household name and then like people just know about DAOs because we're still so early and the public awareness of this isn't really there yet. But I think once people learn about it, they're going to be really excited about it. So I dream of a future when we 10x this thing where everybody knows about it and it's a viable option.
Couldn't agree more. We know where you think we're going, big picture, but we also always like to know what's the craziest kind of idea you have thought about since you were familiar with DAOs that should be a DAO? And this could be anything. Like literally the craziest, silliest thing, or like the most world changing thing. Whatever came to you, and you're like, someone should do this, someone should make it DAO, and really spice things up. What's that idea?
You know what? I wouldn't say this is like crazy. This is just really tied to my passion and who I am. Like I started my own business. I started a juice company a couple years back, and I studied holistic nutrition and really got into wellness and I found that to be a huge tool for me to do better in life. And I started getting involved with doing ocean cleanups and getting involved with different nonprofits and getting involved with the DAO called Sustainable Development DAO, where we are working to implement like carbon credits and support forestry initiatives. So really, I feel like my big idea is let's focus on DAOs and projects that regenerate the earth and empower individuals to be well, focusing on wellness in some way. I actually started organizing this down. I ended up working full time now in Opolis and I didn't move through with this, but it was going to be called Wellness DAO and bringing wellness into the blockchain and delivering individualized cleansing packages to individuals and also giving back to nonprofit initiatives and projects that are doing good for the world. So, really, that would be my message to people. Just create things that are good for the planet, that are good for the world, and that are good for people.
Yeah, let's double click on that because how do we connect DAOs and Web3, decentralized technologies, and future of work to like real life things that people can really connect, right? Where this old way of doing things can adopt the new way in that sense, right? Like, how do we make this more tangible? I'm also thinking about the small business owner. I used to own a cafe. So I had this third wave coffee shop. And with my employees, if I could have contracted some employees and utilized like them in this way, that would have been pretty fun. I wonder, as someone that's listening to this right now, that's a small business owner that would be interested in experimenting with that, how what their first step is.
You know what? I think we are seeing such a rise in freelance and independent work. I think that's such a big part of the future of work is the contracting culture and freelance culture. So I think that's huge that you bring that up, man.
Cool. So let's talk about just how people get in touch with you and how people get in touch with Opolis and anything else you want to talk about.
Sure. So I guess contacting me, I'd say there's one of two things we can talk about. If you're a project listening and you want to partner with Opolis and get featured on Web3 Wednesdays, that's something I'll be launching in the coming weeks. I'm open to having a conversation. I'm open into looking how to add value to your community, to helping individuals getting things like W-2s, pay stubs, ensuring tax compliance. If you're a DAO listening and that sounds like something that interests you, you can reach me at my Twitter. It's at Rachel Rose B, or I'll share my Calendly link in the description if you want to connect with me that way. The other method of connecting and building a relationship here is if you're interested in joining Opolis independently as a member. That's also something you could schedule some time with me to talk about. And our website is opolis.co.
Amazing. So we just threw all kinds of questions at you today. You answered them fantastically, but we want to start leaning into the interests of our guests a little bit more as well. So I just want to give you an opportunity to let us know what you are passionate about. If there's anything we should have asked and didn't, and you want to riff on it a little bit.
You know what? I'd say the last two things I'll bring up is I'm really passionate about humans. I love meeting with people and doing things like this and just challenging myself to step up in the community and help to deliver educational content. So I really love doing this. I'm so grateful for you guys having me here today. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is know your why. I discovered this Japanese philosophy called Ikigai, and it's basically, it shows this Venn diagram. It's what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at. And this has been fluid for me. This has changed a bit over the years. But I feel like Web3 and DAOs, it's something really bigger than ourselves. And I've really found my why in Web3 and DAOs. So I would just say, I'll leave off to the listeners today. Really hone in on your why and really show up and bring your passion into what you do and be aligned with your higher purpose.
Yeah. Fantastic. Rachel, you're amazing. Opolis is doing very interesting and very important things. Thank you so much for being on the show today and for sharing your wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you to our listeners who tuned in today. Thank you.
See ya.
And that's a wrap. Sven and Solve are your hosts for DAO Deep Dives, a podcast about all things DAO. Thanks for tuning in. Till next time.